Now today we're in the process of waiting for some of our carbon fiber parts for the BMW part of this triple restoration to dry up by a heating vent. So I wanted to use that time to get a little bit of a head start on the Buell, the side fairings. Now the reason is these parts have what a logo like a horse, and it was put on in such a way that there's just not enough clear on it, and it's not put on with a smooth surface. So we're going to try to straighten that out today and get that straightened out so it's ready for maybe the final coat of clear, or maybe even one more. But before it leaves the shop, we want that to be perfect for sure. Today I came out to the garage, and the parts from yesterday have dried up beautifully. We took advantage of a great painting day, an absolutely fabulous painting day. Only one problem today: the temperature dropped down overnight, and well, it's still dried out really, really nice. That just really came out nice. But I'm going to bring this down, put it by a heating vent, let it sit for another day or two, and we'll work on some other parts, sanding down some of the Buell parts or whatever today. But in the past, I've been tempted to run downstairs with my own restorations, sand this down real quick with 2000 and buff it out. Always a mistake. I always think it's better if you let it sit a day, even 2 days. In our case, since we paint basically in the winter, letting it sit up by a heating vent, or I guess a radiator if you have it, it just makes it easier. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means it'll be less labor intensive. And a part like this is going to be labor intensive to do, and we'll be doing that in the next couple of days. But for right now, I'll get these parts, both of them from yesterday, down by a heating vent, have a cup of coffee, feed the birds, and get to work. Now, for all these restorations that I've done, I've always used the same protocol. We always do them in the middle of the winter, and whenever I put something to clear, final clear, especially the final clear where you're going to buff it out, what I always try to do is let it dry 24 hours in the garage or more. In the case it's about 40 degrees here right now, and hopefully a day by the heating vent is good, 2 days even better, and it just makes the buffing out that much easier. Now, another thing I learned the hard way, just trying to put some lessons, hard lessons to learn along the way. There's been days when I've painted in the summer, the exact opposite of today, and it's been 90 plus degrees, and I'd leave a black part out in the sun and the paint would bubble. And that's always something that I'm always aware of. I don't want to have that. I've got enough things to deal with. This work is labor intensive enough without finding. So with the parts up by the heating vent, and believe me, at this temperature, an old house like this, the heat almost never shuts off. What I'm going to do, and I can take the two fairing sides, maybe I can get both of them done today, get them sanded out for the final coat of clear. That'll be one step ahead, since I don't see what I don't have is the rest of the BMW fairing parts. So I wanted to do all the BMW first, but I don't want to waste a day that I could be getting those parts block sanded out. So that'll be the project of the day. So the first thing, we're using the WPF Pro Merca paper 400 grit. Mix up some nice warm soapy water. Nothing critical there. And this is the critical thing. This emblem, this sticker that was put on and painted over and cleared over by somebody else, it's really lumpy. You can see the lumps in it. And it's not done well. We're going to spend a lot of time trying to make that as good as we can. Now, the first part of any of this is to just get some of that 400 grit paper and get it all dull. And then any spot that's still shiny, and it's usually going to be around the edges, around where the horses, or I guess the dragon, whatever this is, the ear is. And this, I had to really spend a lot of time, because what'll happen if I over sand this and go down into the yellow, it won't be long, and I'll have to repaint the yellow. And imagine trying to mask off that sticker and do it over. So I'm being way more careful than I normally would be, because again, anytime you're painting and you have paint and carbon fiber, if you go through into the carbon fiber, the raw fiber, it leaves a scar that you can't get rid of. And now this is even worse, because I've got paint and it's not done evenly. Some of the paint here, it looks like they went over it because it's yellow, of course. They went over it 2 or 3 coats. It's way thicker in spots than in other spots. This was really a lot more challenging than you think it is. It looks easy, but now, once that area is flat, and I can almost not feel it, there's still little shiny spots. You see the little shiny spots? And where those shiny spots are, I have to work on even more. Now, the little shiny spots that are left, I took a hard sanding block and tried to work around them, because if I break through, and I don't know how much clear, the gentleman that put the clear on for Vlad before this, I don't know how much clear he put on. But see, there's a little shiny spot up by the ear, little shiny spot. All those little shiny spots, I have to make it as flat as possible without going through the yellow. There's another one right there. And this takes an incredible amount of patience and time to get that whole part flat with 400. Now, it's a good thing we have fast forward, or this would be a 3-hour video. Now, I'm trying to do this like a checkerboard. Now I'm trying to do one spot at a time. I have the place up by the horse done. I'm trying to do the red, but I'm looking constantly to see if I'm breaking through. If I see that soapy water turning even the least bit red, or the towel wiping it off, I have to stop, because I can't go through this. I don't even have any touch-up paint for this job. So I have to really be careful. This is the kind of thing, and I don't want to feel those paint edges where it goes from carbon to red, red to yellow. When I'm done with it, if I close my eyes, I don't want to feel any of those paint edges. Now, it's always way more difficult when somebody else has done half of the job. It's like a contractor that has a job that somebody else started building a house. But I am I'm very confident I can make this part way better than new. But I'm going around all these corners, all these edges, every little thing, and this just gets time consuming. Go back over it, wipe it down. This is the part that takes more time than even when people are sitting in the shop watching me do this, they think I'm taking way too long. It just takes time. And none of this stuff is rocket science. It's just labor. This is like digging a hole with a shovel. It's not rocket science, but you've got to be patient. And every step of the way, you've got to go back. Now, see, there's a little shiny spot there. I've got to address that. Or else when I put the final clear on this, see, right in the valley there, it's still a little shiny. Being able to just look at it and look for little things that need correction, that's the thing that makes it, when it's done, a super show quality job. And this is the part that really takes time, because if you break through on an edge, you've got a touch up. But going back and forth, wipe it down, go back over the spots you think might have a little rough spot, a little shiny area, and I say, what? Uh-oh, there we are. That's the end of sanding that. They had that edge where the yellow and red come together. As soon as I see the towel get the slightest bit yellow, I know I'm done. I cannot sand that anymore. I'm done with that area. So the more hours I'm putting in on this part, I really start to realize how much effort it is. Even the edges, these edges here, because the person that put the clear on really missed the edges. So I have to, again, it's always the same thing. Be very, very careful. And in this case, this was a very long day. But boy, toward the end of the day, this was getting more and more rewarding as the day went on. And of course, once I get the sanding done, then I'm going to go back over this over and over with, this is Sikkens M600. Wipe it with clean paper towels. And just go back 3 or 4 times. Before I put this part aside to dry, I want to make sure I don't have any fingerprints on it, any residual, anything that I'm not going to be happy. And at the halfway point, it was a great time to have a real good coffee break. Labor of love. Now, a general rule I've always found here as I start the second part of the fairing, the second one always seems to go a little faster. I don't know why, even though your arm gets tired maybe, or maybe the coffee kicks in, I don't know. But I just wanted to make sure I didn't bite off more than I could chew in one day, because I want to have this part. When you see that horse, I want to put my hand right over him, and you can't feel where it is. And I know there's a reality to this. It's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of effort, a lot of back and forth, picking away at the little spots, wipe it down, pick away, wipe it down, until I get that whole part as flat as I possibly can make it. Now this side looked like a little bit, they did a little bit nicer job than they did on the first one, but still, there's just no other way to say it. This is just a labor of love, and if you're willing to pay the price, it comes out great. And there's always a lot of people that dread when they have to sand something, or they try to avoid sanding it, or they're not. Well, there's no other way I know I've ever found to do this when you want the show quality finish. There's just no way you can spray it from a spray gun and it's done. There's a lot of this kind of work, and it's time consuming. Now in this particular case, see, because the person that did this the first time didn't really radius the edges, and they really didn't put enough clear here, so I really had to be careful, especially on the parts that are painted where the red and the yellow are. But it's not something you can't do, but you got to be aware that as soon as you break through, this has to be done delicately, because as soon as you break through on any of these edges, you put a couple extra days of work into the project. And in this case, these are very, very expensive parts, and I don't want to be responsible for having to do the whole project over. Right now, as every step goes on, I just get more and more and more careful, and it takes more and more and more time. So as I'm giving this the final wipe down, I'll have both of the parts wiped down, prepped for the next painting day. It's not going to be today for sure, but we're going to look at the weather in the next couple of days. Hopefully we can get some clear on that, and then we can go back to doing the fairing. While that clear is drying, we'll work on the fairing. We're always leapfrogging one thing to another thing to another thing, and that's the only way I've ever known that I could do a job like this. Is an enormous job with 3 restorations going on at the same time, but we're managing to fit things into little slots of time that we're hoping we're going to be able to get all 3 of them done. But right now, the way these are playing out, these are taking a little, because it's carbon fiber, it just takes a lot longer than it would be if this was just a total painted job, and we still need the BMW, the big fairing. So by taking the day today and working on the Buell, this part now has an extra day to dry up by the heating vent, maybe one more day. Then I'll do the little test with the sandpaper to see if it comes off like chewing gum or if it comes off like dust. If it comes off like dust, not chewing gum, we're ready to buff. But this is such a labor-intensive part. We'll probably save this for a separate day. But this is a part that when it's done, just seeing a motorcycle come down the road, you're going to see the sun shining off every little angle and facet of this. This is a beautiful part. And when I'm done with it, it's going to be even more beautiful. So looking back over a long day of basically sanding, 4.5 hours of sanding, what happens is, and a lot of towels to put in the wash, what happens is there's a reward at the end of the day, because I know when I'm done with this part, I've done enough of these over the years that I've been painting to know that it just, when I get to this point, now we're in the bottom of the 9th, and hopefully that last coat of clear is going to lay down beautifully. We'll give it 2 or 3 days to dry, a day or 2 up by the heating vent, and that part will be ready to buff. Now, if you're new to the channel and you haven't seen any other windy videos, well, you know, there's a lot of them out there. There's over 2,700, and we try to do things in an economical, common sense fashion. There's no pie in the sky. We don't have a giant machine shop, a spray booth, or anything you really can't buy in Harbor Freight. But we do have the passion to do this work, and I have the personal passion because so many people have been generous with their time showing me how to do this stuff. I'm very happy to share it with you on YouTube, and hope your project will come out just as good or maybe even better than mine. And thanks so much for watching.